Welcome to another video on AWS databases. My name is Ms. Ghana Gormley. I'm a senior database specialist solution architect at AWS. This is the third video in a multi-part series on Amazon RDS custom for SQL Server. Since our last video, the RDS custom team has added several notable features, making RDS custom the ideal solution for many of our customers with applications that require customization of the underlying databases as well as the operating system. In this video, we are going to discuss this newly released multi-easy feature in RDS custom for SQL Server. Please check out upcoming videos to learn more. Here is the agenda for this video. I will start with a quick overview of RDS Custom for SQL Server, just in case you are new to RDS Custom. Then I will go over the newly released high availability feature on RDS Custom for SQL Server. I will then discuss the multi-easy architecture and briefly explain how it works. Then I will cover the prerequisites for deploying multi-easy RDS Custom instance. Finally, I will show you a demo that will cover all the steps required to create a multi-easy RDS custom instance, as well as how you can convert your existing single-easy deployment to a multi-easy deployment. Amazon RDS Custom is a managed database service which automates database administration and operation tasks. At the same time, it gives you the option to customize your operating system and the database environment based on your needs. RDS Custom meets the requirements of legacy and packaged application since you can install a third-party driver or any kind of specialized software directly on the host. With a full access to the host and the database environment, you can now migrate your SQL Server databases to a managed database service, and you can enable features that are currently not supported on Amazon RDS for SQL Server. Finally, with the newly released Bring Your Own Media feature, you now have the ability to choose between the license-included RDS custom instance, or you can bring your own media to utilize your existing SQL Server licenses. Previously, high availability was a shared responsibility, which means customers will have to set up multi-easy using two standalone RDS custom instances configured with always-on availability group. However, with the multi-easy feature just added last month, customers can now deploy their critical workloads to RDS custom in a multi-easy deployment. Multi-easy synchronously replicates your data to a separate infrastructure in a second availability zone. The configuration is continuously monitored and failover happens automatically. Because we are replicating at a storage layer, the solution works seamlessly in all supported editions. For workloads that require a high degree of availability, RDS Custom Multi-Easy creates a second instance with exact same EC2 instance type and EBS volumes configured in another availability zone. It then creates and set up a replication maintaining a copy of your data in the secondary zone. Assuming the application that is connecting to the database instance is also configured to run in multiple availability zones, if the database compute failed or the primary database crashes, RDS Custom Automation takes care of getting things back up and running for you from the other availability zone. The failover usually takes under 30 seconds, but sometimes it could take up to 2 minutes. The application then reestablishes the connection to the new primary instance using the same endpoint. RDS Custom then replaces the secondary node and reestablishes the replication between the primary and the new secondary instance. Let's look under the hood how this works. RDS Custom uses synchronous physical block-level storage replication to ensure that the secondary always has the exact replica of the primary data. When SQL Server writes to disk on a single-easy deployment, it waits for the storage system to acknowledge the write before it responds back to the session that the changes have been made durable. With multi-easy, the same thing happens, except the storage layer transparently replicates the changes to the secondary instance and only acknowledges the write after it has been sent to the storage and acknowledged on both sides. Again, writes on multi-easy ensures the write occurs in two different volumes. The data is first written to the EBS volume on the primary. It is then sent to the secondary. Once written on the secondary sends acknowledgement to the primary, then the transaction is completed and committed. The secondary does not host a running database instance, so you cannot connect to it for read scaling or any other purposes. It is purely a standby. Now, let's take a look at the high-level steps required in order to create a single-easy or multi-easy RDS custom for SQL Server instance. For both deployment types, creating a symmetric key, an IAM role, and instance profile, as well as configuring the VPC, making sure that RDS custom can communicate to AWS services used with RDS custom environment. These are requirements for RDS custom regardless of the deployment type. However, the additional requirement for a multi-easy deployment is SQS related. I will show you the details in the demo, but for now, I'll just mention we need to create a VPC endpoint for SQS service with the required policy and permissions. Let's get to the demo now. If you are creating RDS custom for SQL Server instance for the first time, we recommend that you use the latest CloudFormation template provided in our documentation. You can also find the latest CloudFormation template and additional details in this Getting Started with RDS Custom blog post. Here is the download file. If you use the template, there are no additional steps required to create the multi-easy RDS Custom instance. Let me go ahead and download this file. Alright, I have extracted the zip folder and here is the JSON file which is going to help me set up the required resources in my account. Now that I have the CloudFormation template ready, I'm going to start creating my CloudFormation stack. Open CloudFormation console and click on Create Stack. And click Next. Provide a name for my stack. And I can accept all the default configuration here. And I want to set up RDP access, yes. And click on Next. And Next again to accept all the default. Acknowledge the terms and I'm going to click on Submit. All right, this is going to take about 5 minutes to complete. And I'm going to pause here and come back. All right, my stack is now ready. If I click on the Outputs tab, I should see all the resources created by the CloudFormation template. I'm now ready to create my RDS custom multi-easy instance. Let me go to the RDS console now. As you see, I'm working in the Ohio region, and right now I don't have any database instance in this region. Let me create my first RDS custom instance. Click on Create Database and select the engine, SQL Server. And here is where you will choose between RDS and RDS Custom. I will select on RDS Custom. And for the edition, I will select Enterprise Edition. And for the version, I will go with the latest version. Provide a DB instance identifier. And I'll provide a password for my master user account. And this is the account that is going to be granted a sysadmin role on your RDS custom instance. And I will accept the default instance configuration and the same for storage. For the availability and durability, this is where you decide whether you want a single AZ or multi-AZ deployment. So I'm going with the create a standby instance to create a multi-AZ deployment. For the VPC, I'm going to select the VPC that was created by my CloudFormation template. That will be the RDS custom demo VPC. Public access, I will say no. This instance is going to be created in the private subnet. I'm going to remove the default security group and select the RDS custom instance security group. For the instance profile, I will select RDS custom demo. And for the KMS key, I will do the same. RDS custom demo KMS key. And that will be it. I have to select I'm all set. I already created my stack. I'm just simply acknowledging here saying I'm all set. And click on create database. Okay, the status is now showing as creating. This is going to take 30 minutes or more. While this instance is being created, I'm going to switch to another region. I just showed you how the CloudFormation template simplifies the environment setup for you if you are creating RDS custom instance for the first time. Now, this is my single AZ instance in US West 2 region. I'm going to show you how you can convert a single AZ instance to multi-AZ. In this region, I do not have the latest CloudFormation template, so there are a couple of things I need to fix in order for me to successfully convert this single AZ instance into a multi-AZ. Just for the demo purposes, I went ahead and tried to convert this single AZ instance into multi-AZ before I completed the prerequisites. In doing so, it actually failed, and I want to show you the error message. So as you can see, there's a message logged saying it's applying modification to convert to multi-AZ DB instance. Then later it failed with this message. RDS Custom was unable to connect to the following dependency service to enable multi-AZ in your instance. The service is SQS. The DB instance will revert to single AZ mode. Refer to the multi-AZ documentation for troubleshooting guidance. To complete the multi-AZ prerequisites, I'll go back to the AWS documentation, and this is a section where you can find the step-by-step instruction on how you can configure the prerequisites manually. First, I need to create a VPC endpoint for the SQS service. Click on endpoints, and as you can see, there are 9 endpoints in here, but none of them are for SQS. So I need to create endpoint here for SQS service. Provide a name for my endpoint and click on AWS services and type in SQS to select the SQS service. Then choose the VPC where my RDS custom instance is deployed. Next, I'm going to select the private subnets from each availability zone. And private subnet 2. Then select the VPC endpoint security group. For the policy, click on the custom and provide a custom policy. I will go back to the documentation and copy the policy document for SQS. I will have to replace the AWS partition, the region, account ID, and the IAM instance role with my information. Replace the partition, AWS, and the region, and I'm going to paste in my account ID. That will be it on this line. And for the principal, I will do the same, replace the partition and paste in my account ID. And next, I also need to replace the IAM instance role. I need to go back to the RDS console to find the name. From the connectivity and security tab, you should see the IAM instance profile name here. I'm going to copy that from here, and I need to go to IAM console. Click on roles and paste in the instance profile name. That should bring up the IAM role. And clicking on it, here is where I can find the role name. Okay, now my policy document is ready. I need to copy this and back to my VPC endpoint. Okay, that's all I need. Click on create endpoint. and here the status should show pending. It's going to take about a minute or two for it to become available. Going back to the documentation. So we are done with the SQS endpoint. The next step will be to update the instance profile with the permission required to access SQS. Copy the document again. Few things I need to modify here. Can remove this and replace the partition and the region and paste in my account ID. That's it. So the policy is now ready. I can copy this policy document and modify the IAM role. Back to the IAM console. Here is the RDS custom role. Here is the inline policy that I need to modify. Currently, this policy is missing the SQS permission. So I need to edit this, and down at the bottom of this policy, I'm going to add a comma and paste in the policy. And there are no errors. I'm going to click on next. And that's all I need. I will save the change. We just modified the IAM inline policy with the required SQS permission. The next step is modifying the security group associated with my RDS custom instance. I need to modify the inbound rules with custom TCP rule to allow port 1120. I also need to modify the outbound rule for the same port. So I'm going back to the RDS console, and here is the security group. And that is the RDS custom instance security group. I need to go to the inbound rules and edit inbound rules. Next, click on add rules and add the custom port 1120. And for the source, I'm going to select the RDS custom security group and click on save rules. I have to do the same for outbound rules. Click on edit outbound rules, add rule, custom TCP 1120, and for the source, I'm going to select the same security group and click on save rules. Okay, we just completed the security group requirement. And finally, we have to modify the network access control list, or ACL, to allow these port ranges. I'll go back to the VPC console to complete this last requirement. Click on subnets and filter for SAZ, so I can filter out the subnets in my VPC. As you can see, there are 3 subnets. 2 of them are the private subnet and 1 public. I'm going to modify the network ACL associated with my 2 private subnets. And now I need to modify the inbound rules first. Edit inbound rules and add a new rule. Provide a rule number and a port range. And for the source, I have to provide the CIDR of my first private subnet and add another rule. Then get the CIDR for the second subnet. And that's all for the inbound rules. I'll save the changes, and I will have to do the same for outbound rules. And add another rule. Then get the CIDR for the second private subnet. And save changes. That was the last step. So now that I have completed all the prerequisites, I should be able to modify the instance and convert this to a multi-AZ deployment. Okay, once I select create a standby instance, I'm going to click on continue and apply immediately. Click on modify. The instance status is now changed to modify. This is going to take some time. I'm going to pause here and return when the instance is available. Now my multi-AZ RDS custom instance is ready. Let me go to EC2 console and try connecting. I now have two EC2 instances in a running state, and as you can see, they are in two different availability zones. Since my RDS custom instance was created in a private subnet, I will not be able to RDP into it directly from my workstation. However, I could use Fleet Manager to connect to these instances. To get the password, I need to go to Secrets Manager. And the secret that's associated with my RDS custom instance is the first one. Click on Retrieve Secret Value, and I will have to copy the entire value and back to my connection window and paste in the content, then decrypt. All right, so this is the password for the first instance. Let me do the same for the second instance. All right, I have decrypted the password. Copy the password, then click on Fleet Manager Remote Desktop. The username is administrator. Paste in the password and connect. I will do the same for the second instance. Back to my connection here. I can expand this and open Management Studio. Again, I am now connected to the underlying RDS custom EC2 instance using Fleet Manager. I randomly connected to one of the EC2 instances, and I don't know if this instance is a primary or secondary. The quick way to find out is if I go to File Explorer, there is no D drive, which means this server is serving as a secondary. Therefore, I will not be able to connect to this instance locally. So I'm going to minimize this and back to the other connection, and I will maximize this, and let me open Management Studio. And while that's opening, go to the File Explorer to confirm the D drive is visible here, and D drive is available. Okay, so that's how you can quickly confirm this instance is primary. The username is admin, and the password is what I provided when creating the RDS custom instance. Okay, I am now connected to the RDS custom instance using the master username. If you try to connect to the secondary instance, your attempt will fail. As expected, the connection failed because this server is currently a standby, and I will not be able to make connection to the instance while it is standby. So let's perform a manual failover. To perform a manual failover, you can do that from AWS CLI, or you can do so from the console as well. Okay? To perform a reboot, you select the instance, click on Action, and select Reboot. The only option is to reboot with failover. So when I confirm this, the status will change to rebooting. At this point, RDS custom is going to initiate a failover to the second node, and it will reboot the current primary. After the failover is completed, the status will be changed back to available state. At that point, this first node that I was trying to connect to will succeed, because that instance is now a primary instance. And if I go back to the first primary server, as you can see, the connection has been terminated because the server is now being rebooted. I'll wait until the instance status is changed to available, and I'll connect to it. This may take from 60 seconds to 160 seconds to complete the failover, but the actual interruption may not last more than 20 or 30 seconds. Okay, the instance is now available. Going back to my connection, click on connect, I'm now connected to the former secondary, which is now serving as primary. And if I go back to the File Explorer, as you can see, the D drive is now visible from the primary. If you see, I'm now connected to this RDS custom instance using the local host name. However, we recommend using the RDS custom endpoint to connect to your RDS custom instance. That is because when you're connected using the endpoint, it takes you directly to whichever is primary. Copying the RDS custom endpoint. And provide the password. And I'm now connected using the RDS custom endpoint. In this demo, I showed how easy it is to use the latest CloudFormation template to prepare your environment for RDS custom multi-AZ deployment. I also showed how you can configure the prerequisites manually to modify a single AZ instance to a multi-AZ deployment. You now know how to work with multi-AZ RDS custom for SQL Server environment. Thanks for watching.